Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Guys, we're back.
We're back. Here we are, back home after 60 and a half hours in an airplane. It wasn't that long.
And it also wasn't that bad.
No, it wasn't too bad. Coming home, it's just a weird experience when you leave at 9:30 in the morning and you get home at 6:45 on the same day in the morning.
So weird.
Yeah.
Time travel.
It's like a mind. It's, yeah, you know.
We loved Australia and the people in it and the animals in it, except for the murder birds and the flying foxes that are giant bats. Not a fan.
Yeah. Yeah, but everything else was way cool. I just loved getting to talk to so many people and experiencing a different culture. I loved going to the ocean so much. I could spend so much time there. So, all in all, I would say 5 out of 5 would recommend.
Definitely. And welcome to some new listeners that we may have gotten from visiting you in Camp Widow, Australia. Welcome. Good to have you. Please don't hate us.
We hope you'll stay. Mel, something happened last night and I wanted to talk to you about it.
Go.
So I get on Facebook to do some mindless scrolling, and the first thing there is a picture of my friend group all together at somebody's wedding. And who was not in that picture?
You.
Me. Yep. Who did not get invited to the wedding?
You.
Me. Who had to find out about the wedding in a picture on Facebook?
You.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I know this feeling. It's happened to me.
So this is the group of friends that I'm connected with through Jason. And the ironic thing is I don't want to go to a wedding. Like, it's not like I really want to hang out and do those things. But it also was like a punch to the stomach to see that photograph and know that I was not included.
Yeah. There's like some meme or a t-shirt or something, and it says, please invite me. I still don't want to go.
Yeah, I want to have the choice.
Yeah.
You know, I or at least the heads up. You know, I don't know. And then I had to think to myself, well, am I making too much of this?
No, it
something
sucks.
I would have been invited to maybe, but then I was like, no, I really think if Jason were alive that we would have at least gotten a heads up about it.
I hate that. That happened to me with a family situation.
Where you found out about it afterwards
I
from
found
like social media?
From Facebook. And it sent me into a 1 month thing. And I was supposed to go on this trip to Romania to go help orphans. And I couldn't because I was like not well in the head. Oh, man. And it was in the fresh grief too. So.
Right. Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, I mean, this has been a while. It's been, 3+ years. And I guess that's the phase we're in now, right? The reshuffling of friendships, I guess, which, I mean, like I said before, it's ironic because I have felt a certain amount of reshuffling within my own self, like which friendships I want to put energy into and which ones I was just doing because of Jason, right? For a while, it was like I had to hold all of those open, but then at some point in time you go, well, actually, is it good for me? Do I want to be their friend because I want to be their friend? Or do I want to be their friend just because Jason was their friend? There's like this really strange dynamic. And it feels bad when you are not the one to make that choice.
Do you feel like those friends are ones that you kind of stepped away from? Or have you been close this whole time?
I have stepped away to a certain extent from that group of friends. It's kind of hard because it's it's a group of people, and some of them I have stayed closer to than others. So some of them I am close to still, and would like to stay close to them. And they're not the ones who didn't invite me. So yeah. So I mean, a little of both, I guess.
I have a question, and I know this is new, and you might not have an answer. But do you think that it bothers you enough that the ones you are close to, you're going to mention it?
No.
You're just going to
Well, okay. I will probably mention it to one set of the friends. Yeah. And I think that they'll be open to talking about it and they won't be offended about it. I will not mention it to the other ones or the ones who were in charge of the wedding. No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like a breakup that you didn't choose.
Yeah.
You got dumped.
Yeah. I know. First by Jason in a weird way, and then by, it's the secondary losses that we talk about. And I don't think it's going to affect me very much or for very long. I mean, it's not sitting sharply within me. I'm like, okay, that's annoying and I'm upset about it. But I would be able to go to Romania to help with the orphans if needed.
Okay, good.
But I have my own.
You're hired.
Excellent. How has your re-entry been, Mel?
Oh boy. So I loved being in Australia, and it was so helpful for me to be away from all of the bullshit in normal life. Sorry, Mom. I know you're not even listening right now because you're a widow, so you might not ever hear me say that. So I can say that. But it was good to be away just from my environment. Everything has happened here, and being my age and living in the basement and having still been in trauma, from my dad dying, and I haven't even been able to access it because of other stuff that's been going on. It's just been kind of a lot. And so I left for Australia and I was so excited. I could not wait to get out of here. Please get me to the farthest corner of the world, even though it's round. And I started a good exercise routine, Anita, which and just being able to be away. My phone didn't work unless I wanted it to. So I kept it off, which is such a helpful thing because I think phones bring a lot of anxiety with them. And I don't have kids, so I didn't have to check on them. So I do realize that I'm in a different situation in that regard. But I got into a good routine, even though I couldn't sleep. You and I would wake up every day at 4 and we're like, no.
4 a.m. Yeah.
4 a.m. But then when it was kind of an appropriate time to start waking up, I would do my, Australian routine and then get up and drink my little vitamin drink, go exercise. And at the same time, I would listen to a mindfulness audiobook by probably my favorite Buddhist monk dude. I don't ever know how to say it. Thich Nhat Hanh. And I love him. And he just has so many good things to say. And so it was helpful exercising and getting in the routine and taking care of my brain at the same time. And I noticed a huge difference in just my overall relaxation of my body, how I was able to process things. I only had 2 meltdowns when we were in Australia. One of them was probably because I was tired. Another was because of something that was mentioned that also has like deep-seated things in my life, which I'm doing EMDR for this Tuesday. So I had a great time. And here's what's interesting. I think I came to this conclusion probably about 5 days in while I was exercising and doing the mindfulness thing. Because then after I would exercise, I would go write in a journal just the things that came up to get it out. Just like get it out of the body. Get it out. Get it out. And I realized I'm going to have to do this my entire life. I can't coast at all.
Yeah.
Some people can't before all this death and trauma. Maybe, yeah, but I can't anymore. And so I'm going to have to make regular exercise that's like not just walking around the block a big part of my life, and being intentional with the stuff, because I mean, my mind, it's different. It just is different after all of this stuff. And so I felt like that was a really good reset for me and gave me some good insight into what I need to do to keep that up, to be healthy. And and when we got back from Australia, like, yeah, it was the longest day ever, right? So we didn't exercise, and I didn't do that, and I tanked. I totally tanked because I came back into my environment. I started feeling like the bad way that I feel usually. And so I'm like, okay, that's it. Like, you know, usually you can come home and you're like, yeah, that was like a fun little vacation. And like, I learned these things, but now I'm back and I'll just coast again. I can't do it. Yeah. So I've been, we've been back for what, 2 days, but I've exercised both days. And I went to the gym today, and I'm just really trying to keep on top of it. Because it was so nice to feel like I wasn't suffocating under the water and that I was on top of the water.
Mm. Yeah, that's a powerful explanation or a way to describe your feelings. I told Mel this when we were in Australia, and I'll just mention it here, that, you know, the whole exercise thing is super helpful, but it's also something that takes a lot of patience and dedication. It's not something that you can expect to incorporate easily into your routine. It takes, like you said, a lot of intentionality about it. And I always tell people will say, you know, I tried running and I just really didn't enjoy it. And I'm like, do you know how long it took me to look forward to going running? And then I tell people, and they're not very happy. 7 years. That's how long it took before I considered myself a runner and somebody who looked forward to doing it, not just somebody who was like doing it because I had to. So don't give up.
Yeah.
And also don't burn yourself out. Don't go too hard into it, because then it's too hard to maintain that level, right? Yeah. So it's like, choose something that's manageable. And maybe for some people, walking is enough. Like sometimes we put walking down, but walking is so good. It's, you know, that repetitive motion. It's both sides of the body. If you're outside, it's even better, because then you're getting the stimulus from nature. And there are like studies that show that being outside is incredibly grounding and helpful for your mental health. So, you know, don't put that down. But if you can get sweaty, that's when you get the endorphins, is if you can be working hard enough that you break a sweat.
Yeah.
So,
and I love
just something
that.
To think about.
Like when you and I were out and about, we had to walk up hills and down hills. So after exercising and doing the thing where I'm like, okay, I've done my whatever it was, exercise in the gym, then there was still more. And then we were outside. And so, yeah, even today after doing the gym, I'm like, okay, I feel pretty good. And now it's starting to be night, and I'm like, I think I need a walk still. So
yeah, maybe.
I used to walk all the time, and I did great in the head. So whatever.
But then your life fell apart.
Then my life fell apart, and I had a car accident, and I did nothing, and whatever.
Yeah.
But that's another reason too why I like to have a variety of activities. So like the roller skating and skiing.
Yeah. Things that fill your bucket, so to speak.
So
yeah,
I'm doing okay. I'm managing things and trying to monitor that, and I'm just gonna have to fight hard the rest of my life. It's just how it is. So
maybe just for 7 years, and then it will be okay.
Okay. Well, maybe in 7 years, the next meteor will come and hit us like today. Was it yesterday or today?
It was, yesterday. We had a strange incident. The meteor didn't actually hit the ground, but there was a meteor explosion in our area, and it made a very loud noise. But then did you see that somebody in our group got hit by a meteor? Did you see that?
Wait.
You have to go to Facebook.
I did see it, but was it actually a meteor?
I don't know. I don't know if, how do you know for sure?
She knows who she is. You need to email us.
Yeah. Crazy.
Wow.
Well, I'm glad, Mel, that you're doing okay and, keep it up and, go forth.
This mental health business is just, it's so rough when we've experienced what we've experienced, And it's like, we think that we're so far along after this death stuff when we're coming up on 5 years, and it really isn't that long.
Yeah. But then I was thinking about how sad I was that Jason has been not on this planet for 3.5 years. That seems like so long for the planet to be missing out on him. It seems really short, and at the same time it seems really long too, because people will never get to experience him, and they haven't for 3 years, so
yeah,
it sucks.
And I'm like, I was married to Scott almost 2 years, and I'm coming up on 5 years of him being gone, so I don't even know what to think. I'm kind of just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that sucks too. Ugh.
Well, we're widows, and we're here, and we have a podcast, so that's fun.
And if you want to keep the podcast going, you guys should check out our Patreon. Patreon is a way for consumers to help content creators such as podcasts. So if you go to patreon.com/WWDN, you can sign up to be one of our patrons and support the podcast and keep it going.
Yes, we have 4 tiers available starting at $5 per month. So check it out. The $10 level gets you access to ad-free episodes, and the benefits just go up from there. So check it out. And also what you get at the $10 level and up is a shout out in episode.
Let's do it.
All right.
Can we have some bad saxophone music in the background this time, Mel? Like the guy who was playing on the beach.
Oh my gosh.
On the Gold Coast. There was a saxophone player. It's bad news when it takes you more than 30 seconds to figure out what song they're playing.
Okay, I'm trying to keep my mental health up, so I am not sure what's going to be under this. I'll do my best, but if I can't, then I can't.
How do you find bad saxophone music anyway?
Oh, I know how.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if I can handle it. Okay.
All right. We're going to start with our secret dead husband. And to her we say, waltzing a widow, waltzing a widow. You'll go a waltzing a widow with me.
It's so funny. Waltzing Matilda is not even a waltz in 3/4 time. But I digress. Constance Dahlbeck.
David Kelly.
Dawn Satterwhite.
Emily.
Hi,
Emily.
With no name.
She's tall.
A tall Emily. Gail Bell.
Ivan Misner.
Kat.
Krista Waite.
Maya Glasser.
Neil Hooper and Cecily Hatchett.
Sam Finlayson.
Amber Vela.
Amy Hartman Martell.
Amy Neal.
Ashley Hahn.
Barbara Schneeberger.
Brandy Younger.
Brittany Pedro.
Chris Steffen.
Christina Shiflett.
Cindy Wilkerson.
Danielle Katterberg.
Not a Debbie Downer.
Dennis Brazo. I changed my fitted sheet today.
Jean Marie Massey.
Jenny Taylor.
Jennifer Beal.
Jennifer Brown.
Jenny Wang.
Jesse Johnson.
Welcome. Carol Schultz.
Kelly Ford.
Kirsten Stromberg-Clausen.
Laura Aguirre Penner.
Lauren Old.
Lou Clausen.
Marie Hoffman.
M.K. Anderson.
Patricia Wiest.
Rachel Barbosa.
Sarah Morris.
Sunshine Haven.
Sylvia the Shore.
Taylor Schneider.
Karen Cornejo.
Anna Tracy.
Christina Scambato.
Christine Anderson.
Cindy Raynaud.
Connie Remich.
Dawn Barber.
Debbie Fells.
Deborah Westwood.
Diana Becker.
Emily Toledo.
Eric Vandermeulen.
Aaron Posick, our tour guide.
Oh, Aaron, thank you so much. Gabe Lozano.
Gia Benoit.
Gina Haas.
Ian Sini.
Iliana Bell Ruiz.
The Jackie.
The Jane.
The patron that does also not want to be named.
Jennifer Davis.
Jenny Armstrong.
Jenny Barrow.
Jocelyn Milo.
Judy Malkin.
Julie Stevenson.
Karina Jacobo.
Kathy Murray.
Katie Getz.
Welcome!
Hello, Katie. Tell us if we said your name right.
If it's goats, I'm going to be so excited because we love goats, but I'm pretty sure that it's not goats. Katie Radcliffe.
Kara Scara.
Kevin Ferry.
Chris Morgan.
Laura Keeley.
Lindsay Kanabka.
Okay. Lori Farrington.
Marjorie Lewis.
Mary Ann Hammond.
Mary McGowan.
Megan Montague.
Melissa Bowers.
Melissa Hancock.
Missy Schubert.
Naomi Brown.
Well, hello, Naomi. Peter Rukavina.
Rebecca Olamacher.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC registered investment advisor. Becky
Zebra.
Becky
Just
Zebra.
think zebra. Yeah.
I know, I had to think that in my brain.
I'm not going to even tell you guys about the zebra toy I got out of a Japanese vending machine. That's for another day. Robin Flam.
Sarah Kennedy.
Stacy Saywert.
Tammy Teravest.
Tara Wallace.
Trenton Thompson.
The newest trauma informant, Valerian Rootpacker.
And finally, we have Sticky Lollies Wendy.
Yay!
Thank you to everybody who supports us on Patreon. We couldn't do without you. We so appreciate all of the support you guys give us. It's still mind-boggling to us that you guys are out there listening.
Thank you for allowing us to help others. It is so helpful for us to be able to bring this to you guys. It's a lot of work, so we really appreciate you and your support. If you would like to support the podcast but are not able to do Patreon, please consider buying us tacos at buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
And if none of those things work, will you please just give us a rating review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify? It really, really helps with the algorithm so that when people are looking for support for widows that we pop up.
But like a nice one, please.
Yeah, it's so easy. Just go do that. Please and thank you.
Also, we have an app. It's in any app store, the Widow We Do Now app, and you can find everything in there because we all have widow brain, and it's all in one place there.
We also need to fess up. Do we need to fess up about something, Mel?
What?
We totally spaced the Zoom calls yesterday.
Oh my gosh, you guys, we're so sorry.
Yeah,
we're so
coming
dumb.
Home from Australia, we just lost all sense of space and time, and so we forgot it was the second Saturday of the month. So please pardon our mess up there. And if you're on there trying to get on there and we weren't there, we're so sorry.
Sorry, we suck. We're the worst. Okay. Well, guess what? Guess who's not the worst? Our next guest.
Yes. Oh, I love her so much. Let's get to this. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We are two young widows. We are just trying to help you figure out widow
We
do
now.
We've already had a lot of fun before we've even actually started recording, so I don't know. Do we need to keep going, or can we just call it quits, Mel?
Well, sorry that you all have missed out because we've been having a lot of fun, and here we are 20 minutes later.
Yes. Mel, do you want to tell us who we're talking to today?
We are talking to the lovely and talented Sade Ariyo from Denver, Colorado. Well, currently from Denver, Colorado.
Yes, currently, yes, from many, many places, but Denver right now.
Welcome, Sade.
Thank you.
Denver is your home right now. Yes?
Yes, it is.
But
Yeah,
you've lived in many places?
I have. Yeah. I don't know. Thursday's child has far to go. I'm kind of living that.
Let's start with where you grew up.
So born in London, grew up in London, then moved to Nigeria, then moved back to London, then moved to Chicago, then wound up in Denver by way of the Pacifics, and then Georgia. So
Wow.
I know, lots of places.
So what brought you to the United States?
My husband.
Oh.
Yeah. You know, you move for love, right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so where were you living when you guys met?
In Nigeria. So
Nigeria.
we're both in college, yeah.
Okay,
And
tell us the story.
It was just one of those fluke. He was roommates. It's long-winded story. So he was roommates with my friend's boyfriend. And my friend was dating this guy, and she was so excited about him. And she said, I want you to meet my boyfriend, da 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 da. And so I went with her to meet her boyfriend, and Leon was there. And I was like, oh, he's cute. But, you know, I was 20, so I really was not thinking about dating or anything like that. And, you know, he tells the stories like that day. He was like, oh, yeah, this is a person I'm going to marry. And I was like,
how do people know that? There are a lot of people that's happened to.
Yeah, he was not, I mean, he was just a year and a half older than me, but he was one of those old soul kind of people, you know. It's like, yeah, lots of maturity, lots of school and education, way ahead of his time, you know. So, yeah.
What was his area of study?
So he ended up being a physician, but when I met him, he had completed his bachelor's and he was doing his master's. So he did a bachelor's in physiology, and then he was doing a master's in chemical pathology while waiting to go to med school. Yeah, like,
wow.
And, yeah, I know.
Chemical
He's
pathology.
Crazy, smart, chemical pathology. So yeah.
Which I don't even think is a real thing. I think that's just like made up. It's like
who knows? And he loved to study and he loved to teach, and he always wanted to be a physician. So it's like whatever it takes. So one of the things it was kind of crazy when we're telling the story about how we met, I think maybe on our second date, so he's studying chemical pathology. And then he asked me, well, so do you know what your blood genotype is? I was like, so I'm like, who asks a person they're dating what they genotype?
Worst pickup line ever.
I know. I was like, I do, but why is that even a thing, And so I said, yeah, I know, I'm AA. Like, I don't know how come I knew what mine was, but I think later on he said, goes back to him saying, I knew this is the person I was going to marry.
Based on your blood type. Uh-huh. Yep.
But he had a sister who had sickle cell anemia, and he was a sickle cell carrier. And so growing up with an older sister who was always going into sickle cell crisis, and, she had a lot going on. And, he said, I could not purposely go into a relationship knowing that there's a 25% chance of that happening, if we had kids. And so, I remember when he asked, and he just sighed with relief when I said AA, because he was like, all right, this is good. I can pursue this now. So
does sickle cell anemia not come through that type of blood type?
So sickle cell anemia is SS genotype. And so if you're AS and you partner with an AS, you have a 25% chance of having an SS baby who will be a full-blown sickle cell. I mean, it's very common in Black people, sickle cell.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where when they do like the 23andMe, like if you find what's it called? like there's a trait that you can trace back to people. Like if you find someone who is white and they have a sickle cell trace, then somewhere in their lineage is, African or African, whatever. Yeah.
Was your husband from Nigeria?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And you were just going to school there, right?
Well, my parents are Nigerian. So I was born in London and my siblings, but my parents are Nigerian. So I think when I was about 10, we moved to Nigeria. My parents were done and wanted to go back to their country.
So you got the blood genotype out of the way, and that cleared the way to romance.
And remind us, what is your husband's name?
His name is Lekan, so Lekan.
So obviously things went well and you joined with each other in the holy order of matrimony.
I know, a little bit backwards. So, we got pregnant, then we got married, and then we had kids. So, but we were together probably like 8 years before, we're both in college, and then he went to med school, just logistically, he did a bit in the West Indies. That's where he did his internship. So like if you study in a foreign country to come to the US, you have to take exams and all of this stuff to move here. So he was in Grenada for a bit to get his exams underway. So he worked in the med school there, and then we joined together and came to the States. So yeah.
Okay, so you lived apart
for a little bit. Yeah. Yes. So yeah. It was a lot of back and forth. So he was in Nigeria. I left when I graduated. I'm like, I'm done with Nigeria. And we did the long distance thing. And then he finished med school and went to Grenada. So then I would go back and forth. And, we did. Who doesn't want to go to the West Indies for 6 weeks at a stretch? So that was not a bad thing. Yeah.
And so you guys had kids. Tell us about your kids.
So I have twins. Oh my gosh, they're 26. So I feel really old.
Yeah, which we don't think is humanly possible.
Nope, because you look at Sade and she's 17.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so cute. Yeah, so the kids moved, and I moved to the States when they were 1.
Oh man.
Yeah, so we did the back and forth from London to the West Indies, and then he got residency in Chicago, and I was just not ready to live in Chicago with him as a first-year resident and me and not knowing anyone. I was like, I need family and people. So we spent the first year again back and forth, London, Chicago, and then after they turned 1, then I moved with the kids, it was great. But it was a huge learning curve, right? Living in the States compared to the UK. There's so many things to adjust to.
What were some of those things?
Well, the food, for one.
Better or worse?
Worse.
Okay, tell us, what are some of the things that you are just
I live by chocolate.
Okay
the chocolate here is horrible.
Oh,
agreed.
Man, dang it.
Agreed.
Bread, in the UK, I bought bread from the bakery. It was, and every high street had 1 or 2 bake, that was normal. The cheese here was horrible.
Oh, that hurts our very souls.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, it was just different, right? Everything was so different. And then figuring out the shopping, where'd you get, because I cook Nigerian food still. So finding places to go get Nigerian, it was just this whole, yes, we're all together, we're really happy. But now it was adjusting to what is it like. And I literally hated driving, actually. So backtrack. I didn't drive when I was in the UK because you didn't need to.
Yeah.
And so then I had to learn to drive here. And, my husband was a resident. We had no money. So he taught me to drive. And then it's like, somehow our marriage survived that. But I remember storming home one day and saying, like, I'm just going to go find someone else to teach me that. This is not going to work. And then I look in the yellow page, it's like $60 an hour for a driving lesson. I'm like, oh, well, that's not going to happen. All right, you can teach me.
He finished residency. You move around the country. What kind of a physician was he?
He did internal medicine and geriatrics.
Oh, okay. He liked the old people.
Loved the old people.
I love the old people too. So
that was cool. He really, really, really liked that. And he loved, his patients would come. He always dressed up. It's like, oh, I have to look good for my my old people. But always wore a tie. Aww. He loved his shirts, and so I think it was a little bit of an obsession.
So what brought you guys to Denver?
So we had lived in Georgia for about 6 years. The kids were finishing middle school. They were in a really small private school. We just wanted a bigger, broader high school experience for them. And I think we were like, well, where do we want to be when they graduate from high school and go to college? That's, and so we were looking for things like a decent school system, an international airport that was not 3 hours away, and, reasonable house prices, which was the case when we moved. Like, Denver's not like that anymore. And we looked everywhere. We went to the West, the Pacific Northwest, and we looked at North Carolina, and Denver, we're like, we're not moving to Denver. It gets so cold there. And then he came out here in November and was able to play golf. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is not, it's not as cold. It's not Chicago for sure. And people can play golf in November. It's like, okay.
So that did it?
Yeah.
That sealed the deal.
And, just the school, the airport being close by, we were living in a really small town, and you could book a flight and then the flight gets canceled because it's rained a little bit. And then you have to drive to Atlanta to go catch
No way. In Denver, same with Salt Lake City. It can be snowing like 87 feet. Those planes are taking off.
Planes are taking off.
Not care.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was like there was a direct flight to London, which for me was like, okay, I can get to London whenever I needed to. So
yeah. Are your parents still in Nigeria?
My mother is. My dad died in 2017. So and she comes here, and then she goes to see my sisters in England, and then she goes back to Nigeria.
Oh, so you guys are still kind of all over the place.
Still all over the place. Still, yeah.
So what year did you guys move to Colorado?
2010.
Okay. Now, let's figure out what happened to this amazing man with the obsession with shirts and ties and blood genotypes.
And golfing.
Yes.
So we moved here 2010, which was timing was perfect, right? He came a few months early. I stayed for the kids to finish school. And so we moved here in June. And then life was good, we got to know Colorado, we explored and did, we got this book that was top 50 things to do in Colorado, and we're working our way through the book. So he was his two loves, golf and cycling. And so he was an avid yeah. And so, so that May of 2011, or let's say April of 2011, we're just kind of thinking about what's going to happen the rest of the year. And, he loved planning trips and getting everything organized. Okay, what do you want to do? And I would give him my list. Okay, these are my must-dos. And he, so he had I think in March, he just kind of put together, we were going to go to London in June and then to the Bahamas in December. And he worked and put this all together, and it's like, yes, all right, we're ready. And so I think that April was the when Kate and William got married. And I think it was just a few days before he died. And I was like, I'm staying up. I'm going to watch this.
Watch the royal wedding.
Yes. And then I had signed up to do this race for the American Cancer Society. And so I was training. And so Saturday night was the 30th of April, right? I was supposed to go for a run Sunday morning, which was May 1st. And then the coach called, he'd sent an email out and said, my wife's going into labor, just go do a run. I'm not going to be there to train. And I was like, yay, I get to stay in bed longer, and I was like, no running for me. And so we're, kind of just doing errands around the house, nothing really crazy. And then around about 5:30, we were like, oh, I need to go do my run. And then he was like, well, maybe I'll just go ride my bike for 10 miles and then we'll meet back at home. And so I go, it's like 10 miles, maybe I'll do a 3-mile run. We'll finish, kind of around the same time. And I'm running back home. And then there's a crowd of people. And he was on the floor.
Oh,
and,
no.
it was so weird. There was an anesthesiologist just randomly walking with his wife. So, they were doing CPR, they'd call the ambulance. And, so my brain could not even engage in, well, wait a minute, that's my, it was just, I don't know. And so the ambulance came and took him. I was like, oh yeah, he's going to be fine. Someone, for the life of me, I can't remember who took me to the hospital that day. Someone off the street just said, you know what, I'll take you to the hospital. Another one of the people there was, her husband was a funeral director. It's really crazy. So she sends her husband, I think she comes to the hospital, I can't remember. Anyway, so it's all these strangers who I, have no idea, like somebody goes to my house and picks up my kids and brings them, meanwhile I'm at the hospital and waiting. And, I don't know how for you guys, whether it was sudden or whether your husbands were sick, but it was, it just was like from, here he is fine, riding his bike, we're going to meet at home too, he's not here anymore. And I don't think the doctor will ever forget my scream, because when he came out to tell me, that's not where my head was, right? My head was, he was going to tell me he's going to be in the hospital for a bit, this is what's going to happen, And so for him to say, I'm sorry, we've done everything we can, and there wasn't more. My brain I just let out this wail that just was the look on. I think I'll never forget the look on the doctor's face, because it was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And then it's like all this craziness of, are we going to be a donor and get the kids, And if anyone ever asks me, like, what's the hardest thing you've ever done in your life? It's really telling my kids that their dad died, right? Like that's, so yeah. And so, I don't know. I was not in my right head for a good one. I mean, I see you guys nodding.
That seems reasonable.
You can tell. Can you tell we're both sudden deathers?
Yeah. Also, both sudden for both of you. Yeah. It just scrambles your brain in a way that's, I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah. So he had not been in an accident. It was more like a sudden cardiac type of thing.
Yeah. It wasn't in
That's same as my husband. Really? Mine was swimming. Yeah. Not biking.
And it's crazy how many people, like my first camp, when I went to Camp Widow for the first time, it was crazy how many people, running a triathlon or someone swimming, or, and I was like, had no idea how common this was, and it was crazy because they just had a physical, so-called clean bill of health. And so.
How old was he?
He was 44.
And how old were your kids at this time?
They were 15.
Oh, 15 is not a great age in life in general.
Sade, this is uncool.
It's so uncool. And, so that I think, and it's so funny, I was talking to someone about this today, and I don't know, your oldest is 15, right, Anita?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So did you sense like this maturity that just set in that was kind of heartbreaking?
For my oldest, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, so that, and I don't know, we had them on our podcast and I kind of asked that question, and they talked about how they consciously made choices to be not the bratty teenagers because
bless them.
I know. I mean, I noticed we didn't have that horrible teenage years with them. I did not experience like crazy misbehavior or anything. And I just thought, well, maybe because all of us were grieving, but they said, oh yeah, they thought about, they consciously thought about not adding any more to my plate, which
they were like, maybe we'll make poor decisions. Never mind. We're not.
Yeah, maybe when we're older.
So you said it's twin boys, right? Both boys?
A boy and a girl.
Oh, boy and a girl.
Girl.
One of each. Oh. I wonder how it was for them because they had somebody to go through that grief with. Did they lean on each other quite a bit?
Yeah, I probably think that's why they're really close still, Yeah, they did. They've always been good friends. I think having each other was a plus. Like they never really had to do anything by themselves, and they were always in the same, same group of friends. Many of their activities overlapped. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Go ahead, Melanie.
Teacher, I have a question for you about burial services or funeral services, death services, because he's Nigerian, you're from England and are Nigerian, and you're in the US, which is not your home country. What did you guys choose to do?
So this is a multifaceted answer.
Ooh. We love it. Perfect.
So years before, like we hadn't really given much thought to we're both young, we hadn't really given much thought. But when we lived in Georgia, I read a book and it was called Granddaddy's Dirt. So if you ever, it was based on the town we lived in, and it was during the flood of 98. So there was a huge flood, like the rain just sat there and the city got flooded. And one of the things in the news was how the burial grounds gave way and the bodies came up. And I'm reading this horrified.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
So I'm reading this book and my eyes are getting big, and I tell my husband, I say, okay, I'm definitely going to be cremated. Like, I don't want to be put in the ground anywhere.
Don't want to be floating down the center of the road.
And, we kind of had this conversation and said, yeah, you know what? Cremation is the way to go. So I kind of knew that was what we were going to do. So we're Christian. So we went to church and we had the service at the church we were attending, which we hadn't been there long. Our pastor from our church in Georgia actually came and did the service. So,
that's nice.
Yeah. That was really cool. And, again, we were so new to Denver. So 90% of the people who attended the funeral flew in from everywhere, from Nigeria, from England, and so that's how we did that. And I still have his ashes. I haven't decided. As much as I love Denver and as much as, I I don't feel rooted in the US, if that makes sense. So I feel like I don't want to just put him somewhere and leave a burden for my kids. Like they have to fly somewhere to go to his, so I've kind of told him that when I go, just mix us up, split us up.
Yeah. Mix us up, split us up, put us in a necklace.
Canister, and then you can take us with you wherever you go. So yeah. And so I think like a year after so one of the things in Nigeria is a year after there's a memorial. And if I was to do that again, I probably wouldn't have done it. But again, everybody came over, and I think that was more traumatizing for me because, we're kind of finding our feet and everything. And what I wanted and what people thought should happen were not this, and so for myself and the kids, that 1 year anniversary thing was so stressful. And I still felt like I didn't have to, but I felt at the time that I had to appease all these people, like, oh, we should do this and we should do that, and that has to be done. And if I were to look back, I probably would have just had the three of us figure out what we would have wanted to do after 1 year. But it's like
event planning.
Right. And everybody descended upon us, and it was, it was like all the planning, and just it was not healing for me.
Oh, Did they at least bring you a lasagna?
I mean, there was plenty of food, and it just was like so many people so you can attest to this as well. The anniversary is one thing, but I wake up every day and I miss him. And so then the burden of everybody remembering on that day that is the anniversary, it's like, this is every day for us, right? Like, don't bring all your stuff because tomorrow you'll be gone, and then we're back to, so yeah, it was hard. And I say that, appreciating everybody's intention, but sometimes intentions and then how they leave you feeling are completely different things, right? So
yeah. So Sade, you're in a place that you've just moved. You haven't really had time to form a community, a regular person community, let alone have enough kind of feelers out there to form a widow community. How did you make your way through that in the beginning? And as you've kind of continued on the path of widowhood, how did you find people to lean on and to give you support?
So it's so the crazy thing, so when I talk about what happened when he died, there was an anesthesiologist, there was a funeral director's wife, and the anesthesiologist's wife. So the funeral director's wife was friends with someone who was also widowed young. And so she connected us, and they would just come to my house and take me out to walk every day. So that was one thing.
They'd get the leash out.
Yes. So,
for walkies.
And these two women, I did not know them from anywhere. They rallied all their friends to bring meals to the house. Like,
oh.
The funeral director ended up doing he ended up doing the whatever you call it. They did the stuff for my husband, and then my kids and I went to this place called Judy's House, which is a grief support for kids and their parents, right? So I met people there. I love physical activity, so the women would come and get me to walk, but I went to a yoga class. I literally went every week for a year. It was hot yoga, and so this is my first real experience of losing someone so unexpectedly, so close, and my body just, I don't know how to describe, but it was just in my body, and I just needed to do stuff to get rid of, I don't know what it was, just get rid of the energy. So I did this yoga class. It was really intense hot yoga class for I think I did it every week for a year, sometimes twice a week. But it was so hot in there, and you're drenched in sweat. So I would go there and I would cry every week.
Because you couldn't tell.
But they couldn't tell, and it was, and again, sudden loss. So you have this spinning of the brain, right? Like you keep reliving what happened and could it change? And, I'd go to sleep and I would literally dream that he was alive and that it was a big mistake. And then I would wake up. So just this tortured. And so I did that yoga class. And then while I was at the grief support place with my kids, a parent came in who had been to Camp Widow. And so I was like, I'm just going to go. My kids were going to go to Outward Bound. I didn't want to be home by myself. So I'm like, I'm going to go to Camp Widow. Who knows what it is, but it's not me home by myself. And so that was life-changing for me. Like, because I'd just been in this auto, mode for so long, like just getting through the day and, doing the stuff with the kids, but really in my head thinking, wow, my life is over, right? And so I come to Camp Widow and people, there's all these sessions and I'm like, oh my gosh, the people presenting are widowed people. So there's a way forward. And then, there was a comedian. It wasn't Kelly Lynn my first year. The lady wrote Poor Widow Me. And she was telling stories about, her journey and when she started, just people laughing. And my brain just put together that, life doesn't have to be one thing or the other, right? You can miss your husband and be sad that he's gone, but still have a life that involves fun and laughter and all of this. And so that was kind of what I took away from camp. And then Saturday night, oh my gosh, the dance floor.
Yeah.
And I remember watching, the disco light. That first year was kind of like a Hollywood, red carpet kind of event. And, like I had this out of body feeling of seeing all these people on the dance floor just throwing down. I'm like, this is really cool. And that goosebumpy feeling like, oh my gosh, everybody on that floor has lost their person.
It's
but
wild.
They're all there dancing and living it up. And so needless to say, I went back to camp the following year. And when they asked for people to do regional groups, I'm like, sign me up. I need people. And so that's kind of how I found my community. I came to Denver in 2013 and started a regional group. And, somehow the word gets out. So there's that one person I met through the funeral director's wife. She had a group of people and we just kind of, yeah. And then I, like I said, I run. So I found, actually my husband found the running group for me. So I went to the running group. And so 99% of my friends in Denver are runners or widows.
I'll be your friend and I'm a running widow.
Exactly.
So I'm like two
we
of
need
the
to start a group, running widows.
You guys need to be friends on Strava.
Yeah, we have a Strava group.
Yes, I'm on Strava. When I remember to put my thing on, I always forget.
Sade. That's unacceptable.
I know, yeah.
So Sade, we actually met you at our first Camp Widow, and we've seen you at the second one that we went to. And
yes.
And how has it helped you to be part of the Soaring Spirits community in helping others?
I think there's something about being in a space where everybody has this one thing in common, but then there are all these different things, like each person has their unique experience, but we all have this common thread that bonds us. Like, oh yeah, this is what happened to me. And my first camp, I went in there like with this deer in headlights mode, like what the heck am I doing? kind of thing. And the first person who met me was Michelle. And she was like, oh yeah, I remember emailing you and this, that, and the other. And it, you know, I immediately felt at home. It took me to the registration table, and, you know, every so often, you know, and I don't know how many people come to camp, but you feel like when you're with her that she sees just you, right? And so that was really cool. And then I just connected with these amazing people. One of my really good friends, Jennifer, you probably met her. We connected and we had this Chicago connection, you know, so we became friends. I met people from Denver who I'm friends with now. Just, you know, we met at camp. And I think I left my first camp with the sense of, this is not going to be fun all the time, but I'm going to be okay. And I saw evidence of that at camp, you know, people who presented and shared their stories. And I'm like, wow, they're upright and they're doing stuff to help other people. It's like, I might not be presenting, but I'm going to be upright and I'm going to be okay. And some things are going to be hard, which that's life anyway. But I think just having that sense of, oh, my life is not over. It's going to be different, right? And different can be good, even if it's not what I was hoping for in the beginning. Yeah.
So we have a private support group, and often we post in there about Camp Widow, and a lot of people are considering coming, but then their number one fear is going alone. And of course, a lot of people go alone because they're widows, right? They go there to connect. So, duh. But I think your story is such a great testament of why it's okay to go there alone, and you can be okay. And what would you say to somebody who's kind of on the fence and that's their fear?
I would say just go. Like, the very worst thing that can happen is that you'll meet at least one person that you'll connect with. That's the very worst that can happen, right? Chances are you'll meet several people that you connect with. And you know, I'll give an example. So my first camp, I met this Jennifer, and we became instant friends, you know, and she Chicago, so we had this Chicago connection, and we stayed in touch after. I mean, we've been friends ever since. And I remember when I was taking my kids to college, right? So I have twins, so they're going to college the same time, leaving the house at the same time. One was going to New York, one was going to Kansas. And Jennifer goes, you know what? I'll come and drive to Kansas with you. And so this is someone that I just met at Camp Widow. And so, like, the friendships that you'll, you know, the potential of friendships that you'll make. I've gone to, 10 camps, maybe more. And every single time, without even trying, I learned something that's helpful, right? And so I don't think there's a downside to going.
I mean, you're going to be there so that they can meet you if they're worried, right?
Yeah, I'll wear a big sign. Go ahead, Anita.
I was going to say the very worst thing that could possibly happen is that you have to dress up in a pirate costume with a wig that's really kind of gross. That's the worst possible thing. But they don't even make you do that. That's just optional. In fact, I just did it. There wasn't even a pirate theme thing. I just did it for fun.
Aww.
Yeah, that was actually the outfit she brought for our presentation. And luckily, no, I'm kidding.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm just joking.
Serendipity.
Yeah, the group of Denver widows that we got to meet when you guys were all in San Diego are a fun bunch. Shout out to God. Rona. I miss her.
Rona, and I think we adopted someone from California as well.
I think that we're like in your area too, because there's I don't know. There's no
right.
us.
We're out west. Yes.
Yeah, in the regional kind of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Sade, you're like us also because you have a podcast. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yes, we're baby podcast. We're trying to be like you guys. So our podcast. So the podcast is with my friend Kim, who I'm a bit further out than she is. And she came to us through the regional groups. And again, we just clicked. I can't say enough about the power of community, like just finding people who share this journey. So we had talked about, before the pandemic, like it would be, we would go on walks and talk about what's going on. And so we should do a podcast. And so eventually last year we decided to go ahead. And it's like absolutely clueless as far as podcasts go, but it's called the Widding Hour. So WIDDING. And it's just really conversations about, widowhood. We've talked to a few people, and we have a few people lined up that we're going to talk to as well. So yeah,
I'm really curious. I'm going to go listen to the one with your kids, because I'm interested to hear their perspective of things, especially a few years past, and with a little bit of maturity and maybe some introspection. I think that will be really interesting. So good job with that.
Yes. And good job starting a podcast, because we know how that goes.
I know it's intense, right? And it's also fun.
There should be a joke that starts out, 2 widows start a podcast. Let's see what could happen.
I know what could go wrong.
Everything. We have had every single thing go wrong.
I was gonna fall back to you have to dress up in a pirate costume. Terrible. That's the worst thing that could happen.
Now, when did you guys start?
When did we start?
Yeah.
In September of last year.
Okay, so September of 2021.
2021, yeah.
Nice.
And so we aim for about 2 a month is kind of our goal. And majority of them are us talking about, we talk about the holidays and talk about anniversaries. And then we've had Kelly Lynn on, and then my kids. So yeah, it's based just conversations, the things, things that come up for us. And, just like you guys, I have kids, she doesn't. I'm way further out, so a little bit different perspective on things and stuff. Yeah, so.
Nice. Can people find that on any podcast platform?
Anyway, podcasts, and our website is thewiddinghour.com. So, yeah.
Yeah. Everybody check it out.
Check it out. It's kind of fun. And, if it sounds very unprofessional, forgive us. We're working our way up.
Hey, you know what? They've listened to us. Like when we first started it, we listened back and we're like, oh my gosh. Widows are the best. They get it.
We are the best. We're very supportive of each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Sade, you're about 10 years out. Is that
11 this year?
11.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to yourself in that first really intense period of grief, from what you know now?
I would say, listen to yourself. Like really look inwards and, do what feels right. I think early in those days, I listened to a lot of people who had no clue what I was going through. And I think if I were to do it again, I would listen to my gut and go with my gut with many of the decisions I made. And I didn't make terrible decisions, but I think like losing a spouse is stressful enough. Like the you should do this and you should do that, and doesn't matter. Right? I remember I had friends who came and said, oh, we're going to do your thank you cards. That was just the most god-awful weekend of my and when I meet people who've lost someone and I've gone and done whatever, I'm not expecting a thank you card at all. And so the fact that just thinking about it gives me a stress response. Like, relieve yourself of the things that you feel like you should do and just do what you can and give yourself a pat on the back for the things that you do.
Now, Sade, you said your mom became a widow in 2017?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you guys are living in different countries. You're different ages. do you guys talk very much? Or have you been able to connect at some level on a widow level? That means you also lost your father. What's that been like?
It's been very so culturally very, very different, right? So my dad was in his 80s when he died. And I think my mom and I are not the closest. I mean, we're not estranged or anything. We're on good terms, but we don't talk about the deep stuff. I don't know if a lot of it has to do, you know, I'm living in England, she's in Nigeria. We've lived apart for so long. I believe that she has an inkling of what it was like when my husband died now. And I think, how do I say this? I think it would take either one of us to put that step forward to really talk about. Like, I don't want to go there, and I don't know that she does either. I also feel like a lot of those conversations are better in person. And so we talk often on the phone, but it's very, very how are you? And this, you know, it's not that deep. Where is your grief? I remember when it happened, my dad was in New York and I flew out and I was there for her, and yeah, but I don't. And then, you know, so when you think about in Nigeria, there's a kind of, I don't know what to call it. It's not a stiff. I don't even know how to pronounce the word stoicism that exists.
Stoicism.
And, yes.
Yeah.
And I think she's more on that. And so, and then there's also the religious aspect, which is the phrases like God knows best. And, you know, I was so pissed at God. Like, I could not relate to God knows best. It's like, what do you mean he knows best? Taking away my 44-year-old husband. Like, I was so annoyed for a long time. And so I think she's deeper in her faith and more believing that this is the way things are supposed to be. But also he was 80 something years old. So it, you know, not that it's any easier, but I think they had almost 50 years married, right? And so, and then he was sick, you know, he was sick for a long time. Not that she was, I think when he died, it was still a surprise, but we all kind of knew it was coming, kind of thing. So, I mean, it would be interesting to have like a heart-to-heart with her. That has not happened yet. It's something that maybe I've been avoiding, or maybe she's been avoiding, you know, because there's going to be some admissions of, oh my gosh, I had no idea what this was like, kind of thing. So, yeah.
This might be a so stupid question, and if it is, I'm so sorry. We recently interviewed a widow from Kenya, and she talked about some of the practices that happen in Kenya around widowhood. Do you know if Nigeria has any of the same, like, cultural practices, like inheriting of widows and?
Maybe in the villages. I can't say. Like, my mom and dad, you know, they lived in England for a long time. So Nigeria's probably one of the more modern places. And not to say that practices don't happen. There's no one that was inheriting my mom. You know, I think what exists in Nigeria for a lot of families is the kids take care of the parents.
Oh, that doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah. So I haven't been to Nigeria in 20 years, so I don't know, you know, like if you go to like the rural areas, that those things probably do exist. To what extent and what those practices are, depending on the region in Nigeria, it's a total possibility. It is a very patriarchal society. So when the woman when the husband dies, chances are that the husband's family sometimes can decide that, you know, if there's no will or anything, then everything goes to the husband's family. But again, that's not something that happens as much in modern day, as far as I'm aware of. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were like, to a lot of this stuff, because that's pretty common too, is that they don't own any of their stuff anymore. So
Right.
Taken.
And so, yeah, my mom still has, you know, she still lives in the house that they lived in, and there's no one, you know, coming to. And then she has 5 of us kids looking out for her. So yeah.
Oh,
thank you.
Yeah.
Sade, do you feel like you've found joy in your life again?
I do, but I don't feel like finding joy is a destination. I think it's an ongoing thing. And so I early on, when I was still going to therapy, my therapist, one of the things she said to me, because I would go in and I'll be like, oh, this just sucks. Like, my life is done. I can't do this. And she would be like, you know, baby steps, you can. And one of the things, I think the best advice that she gave me was, try to put things ahead of you that you're looking forward to. And so I really made that my mission. I was like, all right, I can make fun for myself. And you know what, I was talking to Melanie before we started recording. So music is a big thing for me. Going to live music, going hiking, going running with my friends, travel when it's an option. That's not been much of that. And then just being open. You know, I'm always thinking about, well, what's going to put a smile on my face? Can I make it happen? If the answer is yes, then I go do it. I talk about Brené Brown a lot. I hope I get
she's
to
the
meet
queen.
her one day. She is the queen, but there was something really profound. So during the pandemic, that was a huge shift, right? So I kind of figured out, I'm going to go meet my friends and do all this fun stuff. And then there was a lockdown. It was like no live music. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? That's actually when I started listening to podcasts, like really. There was something she says in one of her books, I want to say it's The Gifts of Imperfection, about joy. So, you know, like when you have a profound loss like this, you think about, well, I'm never going to be close to anyone again, so that when they die, it's not going to hurt so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, when you close yourself off and you're trying to shield yourself from pain, you're also shielding yourself from feeling joy. And so, like, part of that balance is pain can happen. And, you know, we you know, we've not lost the last person we're going to lose, but it shouldn't be the reason why we don't live life fully. So,
I love that.
Yeah. Yes.
So, question for you. Have you tried dating, or are you dating anybody, or are you cool with just being yourself? What's the situation?
The situation is not fun.
Oh, really?
Oh no.
So I always say, like, my husband was a gift and he's also the curse. Like, you know, I don't want to lower my expectations. So I have dabbled. I haven't met anyone that I'm interested in. The looking is not great. It's not fun. So I'm in and out. I've done the websites. I've done like blind dates, and I feel like I would know if a person was right. I've not met that person yet, which, is totally fine. The other thing, when I went into therapy with, I told her, I said, look, I had the love of my life. I might not meet another one, but I want to be happy. So how do we fix this? I kind of worked on getting myself to a space of, you know what? It would be really nice to meet someone, and I would do some of the stuff it takes to meet someone, but if I don't, I'm going to be happy anyway. And I can't let my happiness be dependent on meeting. And I have to be happy first. And then if the guy shows up, great. If he doesn't, I'll keep living my happy life. So that's kind of been my and I almost feel like I got to my happy place. Maybe I did it too well.
Nonsense.
But I was like, okay, I've created kind of like this good groove for myself. Like, if a guy is to come in, he has to be the right one, because I'm not giving up the cool things and fun friends I've found if he's not worth it, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that's such a great and healthy way to approach life, because so many people, I mean, even if they're not widows, they could be single people, and there's a lot of outside pressure, I know, for single people just to find somebody for the sake of finding someone. And it's like, you know what? Your relationship that's going to be the longest with anyone is with yourself. And if you're not happy with yourself, it's going to, you know, be more complicated. So I love that you're in that space. We get messages from people that are grateful that that the stuff that we talk about, and it's probably the same for your podcast too, that we don't just talk in terms of repartnering. So we had a recent episode where the guest had been widowed 30 years and she's not repartnered. And that was so hopeful for people because it wasn't a tragedy for her. She's amazing, so vibrant and so great. And she's doing well. And I'm sure, you know, same for you. It's like, you know what? You're finding your relationship with yourself and what you like to do and your friends. And if that person comes, you'll know. And if not, you'll still be okay.
Life will be good, yeah.
He'll have to be a millionaire with a six-pack, a full head of hair, can cook really well. Yeah.
Very handy.
Needs no attention.
Needs no attention.
So you can go still do all the same things with your friends.
I'm sorry, Sade.
No, I was like,
you're never gonna find him.
It's like he has to be handy. Like my husband was not handy at all. Like not even, you know, he could hang up a painting and he was proud of being able to do that. But it was like he couldn't fix anything, and but he had the toolbox, but no, he couldn't.
Sade, thank you so much for joining us today. You are an infectious person in a good way.
Thank you.
Not in the pandemic way. Yes. But just a joy to be around. And I think that anybody who meets you or hears you will feel a sense of hope, because you're just vibrant and full of life and full of just good vibes, man. And without negating that it is hard. It's not an easy path or a journey, and you don't want to just be like, oh yeah, you're fine. But no, you can fight through this. And I loved what you said, that it's not either or, it's both a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. And hopefully we have you both on.
That would be fun.
We would love to.
Mel has to ask you a really important question that we've already alluded to, unfortunately.
So this question we ask all of our guests when we remember, and we've remembered. So, Sade, this is very important, very serious. What is your favorite cheese? Obviously not an American cheese.
So I like really extra sharp cheddar, and it has to be from England.
I think those are the best.
Cheddar.
Those are the best cheddars. Yeah,
I have memories of extra sharp cheddar cheese with tomato in a sandwich. It's just the best. With like bakery fresh bread, it was just the best.
Yum. Yeah. I used to make those too, except for in America, so I'm sure it wasn't as good. But
And I would say tomato, but I've been Americanized.
Say tomato, tomato.
You're the best, Sade. Make sure you check out the Widow Wives Club. It's our Facebook community. It's private. We do make you answer all the questions. Please don't get mad at us, and please just do it and cooperate.
Absolutely.
If you want to keep the podcast going, check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWDN.
If you'd like to buy us tacos, go to buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
And until we talk to you again, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
And I'm Sade.
And we're two young widows and one widow who's a Nigerian / Brit / Coloradoan / Georgian / Chicagoan. And we're all just trying to figure out widow.
We
You.
now.
This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it. And my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys. Such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.